Chris C74.
Hello YouTubers, here is a quick guide to writing your first novel. Right, first of all you need something to write on or with. Now that could be anything from pad and pen to an old typewriter or a laptop or desktop or whatever. The thing I found the easiest is my laptop, and I got it specifically for that reason. I can do any editing that I need to do, cut and paste, things like that. It's also got a built-in spell checker that helps out quite a lot. I would recommend it, but obviously you've got to go with what you find easiest to use. One of the things that I would suggest, and this is where I get most of my ideas from, is getting one of these. Teach yourself writing a novel. This has really helped me with things like characters and plot lines and all that sort of stuff. It also tells you about agents and the whole publishers and what happens with that and money and all that sort of stuff. Very useful guide. You can pick one of these up in the library or you can buy one from the shop. I would say buy one. I still use this now, and you know, I've got like 2 or 3 books which I'm working on, and I still refer back to that book. Even though there may be spell checker on a laptop or desktop, I always find it good to have a dictionary. So there might be words that the spell checker can't recognise, or you might just want to look up a word just to make sure it's the right word that you want to use. So have yourself a dictionary. Next, get lots of pads. I've got a couple of these which I put with all the books that I'm working on, and I just write down little notes and ideas of what is going to be in the story. This is my ideas pad. This is where all of the books start from. I get an idea, I write it down, put the date with it, and there must be a good 20 ideas in here for books. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I get an idea for a book, so I get this out and write it in there. Then I know that it's in there, and I also know a date of when I created it. This is where all of my books begin. The next stage is to write down a list of boys and girls names. The thing I found when I first started was it was difficult to figure out what I was going to call my characters. I went to the library and got some baby name books. I just went through the whole book and just looked at names which piqued my interest and wrote them all down. Since then I keep going back to this list. It helps me to pick out the names not only for the main character but also for other characters in there, so it's very helpful to do. Another thing is getting one of these pads. This really helps with me. I can write down any notes about the book. I write a little bit of character spiel about each character. I have that by the side of my laptop. If I need to find out any information about a specific character, it's there to hand. I can just pick it up, read it, and it keeps it constant then throughout the whole of the book. Now, one of the things that the Teach Yourself guide said is they reckon that an average book is between 80,000 and 100,000 words. That is for a decent sized book. One of the biggest things I think that first put me off of writing a book was the fact that I had to write 80,000 words. That in itself is a huge amount of words to write. And one of the things that that guide said was to break it down into 20 points. And I've found that this has helped me with all of my books. So you have your idea that you got from your idea book, and you break it down to 20 points of different things that are going to happen in your book. So like you'll have the start and it will say about the history of the characters and all that sort of stuff. Then there might be an event that happens and you put that in, and then another event and another situation. And if you break it into 20 points, I mean, it doesn't have to be 20 points. I found that it really helped me because I was able to tick each point off as I went, and also what I did was write down how many pages I'd done and how many words that I'd done, so that I was able to see how close to the 80,000 words that I was getting. It's a lot easier to think to yourself, right, I've got point 1 to write and it's only 3,000 words, instead of thinking I've got a whole book to write and I've got 80,000 words to do. It sort of takes the pressure out of writing the whole book. So I would say, get yourself a bit of paper, write down 20 points of what your story is going to be, and then as you go, tick each one, write down how many words you've done and how many pages. I think research is quite important. One of the things that I read, or either on the internet or in that book, is that they say write what you know. My first book was about things that I know, people that I've known, but I exaggerated the characters, and also the work situation I sort of knew about that. The sci-fi book that I'm working on, I know a lot about sci-fi, so it was quite easy for me to write about that. Obviously, if there are elements in your book which you don't know about, then it's always good to research it, because you don't want some critic later on saying, oh, this isn't how it happens, that didn't work, or whatever. whatever. So if it's anything medical, or like there's a book that I'm working on which has got elements of a jungle in it and flight plans and stuff like that, I researched into those flight plans and what it was like to be in the jungle. I even watched a couple of videos about jungle life and all that sort of stuff. It helped me to understand what the character would be going through when they are going through that certain situation. I'd say research is quite an important thing to do. One of the things that's recently helped me, and I was a bit reluctant to do it before, is I got 4 books out of the library. The book that I've done is a romantic comedy. What I decided to do is, I've watched quite a few romantic comedies, but obviously a book is different. I got 4 books out of the library with a romantic comedy type theme to it, and I decided to read these books to see how the writer writes it, how he puts in the descriptions and stuff like that, and it's really helped. I would suggest that you go to the library, get some books out about the sort of genre that you're going to be writing about, read them, see how the writer writes his book and explains everything and that, and then that will help you to do your book. I mean, one of the things that I found is it helped me to sort out the flow of the book. The way that he'd laid it out, it helped me to understand and then go back into my book and fix the elements of it which I thought wasn't working quite well. What you might ask is, how long is it going to take me to write this book? Some people it takes a couple of months, some people it takes a couple of years. It took me about 6 months to do it, but that was only because I was only doing, say, 3 hours a night. Then I'd have a break for like a month and then continue. If you're able to do like 5 hours a day, then that's great. I think the biggest thing for me was I felt this pressure from myself to get this thing finished. But at the end of the day, the only pressure is from yourself. When you first do your first book, you haven't got any agents, you haven't got any publishers to get on your back and say, you've got to get this done right now. Just take it slowly, don't rush at it, and if you feel uninspired, then go and watch a film or listen to some music or do something else. But try not to put pressure on yourself to get the book finished. It's your book and you do it in your own time, and it doesn't matter for your first book anyway how long it takes. And then lastly, the thing that I would say where editing is concerned is, when you've finished your book, print it out. I had a 331 page book which was in the type style of a normal book that you'd find a paperback book on the shelf. So I managed to fit it on 127 pages. I then printed it out and gave it to my sister. It takes her a day to read a book. So I gave it to her and she's been reading it and making notes about how I could change certain things. Get a family member to help you out. Someone who you trust. Someone you know that isn't going to stab you in the back and nick your book. So give it to them, let them read it, see what notes they've got, what comments they've got, then start editing your book. Now, where agents and publishers are concerned, I don't really know about that yet because I haven't really got into it, and to be honest with you, I'm still at the baby stages with my book, so I've got a lot of editing to do on it. It's going to be a while before I even think about going to an agent or approaching a publisher. In the Teach Yourself guide, it does explain how to go about that. There are writing forums which you can go on, and there are websites like Waterstones and Bloomsbury which give you some idea about how you can approach agents and publishers, because there is a specific way that you need to do it. Also, another book that I would suggest is the Writer's Guide. That's got quite a lot of good information. It's also got a list of agents in it and publishers. If there are any questions which you want to ask which I haven't covered in this video, then I will try to answer them as best I can. I've only been writing for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I have written short stories before, but nothing's ever been published. I am just a new writer, I would say, and this is my first book that I've written. I haven't got all of the answers. I will try to answer the best way that I can with the knowledge that I have. And there's my guide. Okay then, bye bye.
If you watch, you will learn. I was amazed.